Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we have a brand new Mattel figure to take a look at. The glare was a little bit obnoxious right there, but we have the brand new Dino Escape Wild Pack Shringasaurus for you guys. And this was actually sent to me by my good friend Brandon from Instagram. Brando Gaming 2000 would be the name that he goes under on there, and he was awesome enough to acquire this as well as a few of the other wild packs to help send my way and get them to me a little bit sooner than it would have taken for me to find them personally, because my area is always the worst when it comes to trying to find anything new from Mattel. So I usually spend months and months and months looking for stuff to no avail. Luckily, I've got awesome friends like Brandon to help hook me up with things like this, so a huge thank you goes out to him. But anyway, this Shringasaurus here again looks really cool, actually. Like, it definitely looks nicer in hand than I thought it would. And then here on the back of the packaging, we have a look at the other wild packs that are in this wave, which is a Rhamphorhynchus, the Shringasaurus, the Mononychus, and the Velociraptor. Of course, we have a Velociraptor, no surprise there, but it is really cool to have an entire wave of new paint variants, and then, of course, one brand new species, as we sometimes just get repacks and then like one random figure or two random figures. This time we have all new stuff here as far as the paint variants and the brand new species of Shringasaurus. So let's pop this open and take a look at it. And here is our Shringasaurus, and it absolutely looks like a terror dog from Ghostbusters, like everybody's been saying, but at the same time, it actually looks really nice. Like, they did a fantastic job on the detailing of this. Like, it really has a very realistic appearance to the skin. Like, so many skin wrinkles and stuff, like just running down the neck here and then down here in the stomach. I really love how realistic the skin detail is, and the detail itself looks very vibrant, very reptilian, of course, throughout the course of the animal. You can see it here along the back. So I'm immediately very impressed with the sculpt. Again, it's far nicer than I expected it to be, but I shouldn't really say that because most times that happens to me. I always expect it to not be as good as it is, but it's Mattel. I should be used to the overall high quality of their sculpts themselves. So again, it's kind of crazy at this point that I would continue to have that mindset going into these figures, but this one certainly is exceeding my expectations already, so let's go ahead and jump straight to a closer look right now. So, of course, looking at this, you could probably instantly tell if you are familiar with Shringasaurus that it doesn't look exactly like what a Shringasaurus would look like. Like, I don't think it's too far off or anything, but there certainly is more of a almost movie monster type of a look for this one over what a real Shringasaurus would look like, so we do have to take that into account. But the fact that it's a Mattel Jurassic World figure kind of means it doesn't have to be accurate. Of course, it would be awesome to be accurate, but at the same time, it doesn't need to be, because the animals in those films aren't exactly full-blooded versions of what they are. And on top of that, to make a Shringasaurus, they probably wanted it to look a little bit more of like a movie monster type style, so kids would be more interested in it, and I think they achieved that quite nicely with this figure. But as far as what we do have sculpt-wise on our Shringasaurus here from Mattel, you can see some really nice detailing there in the face, a lot of really nice scale detail here up in the face area of the Shringasaurus. The eyes are actually painted really beautifully, painted with a kind of like an orangish coloration, but they're perfectly placed, which is awesome because that's not always the case when it comes to Mattel figures. And let's take a look at the opposing side here. Also quite nicely done, so that's definitely a huge plus as far as this figure goes. We have those kind of trademark Shringasaurus spikes up here on the top of the head that you can see those are painted with kind of like an off-white, like a light off-white, maybe bordering on a slight shade of yellow. The jaw is articulated. Well, obviously the neck is too. As I try to open it, that jaw is actually really stiff. Like, that might be the most stiff jaw that I think I've ever seen on a Mattel figure. So that's definitely something that is quite interesting about this one. I don't know if they're all that way or if it's just mine, but that jaw is super, super stiff. But you can see the inside of the mouth definitely looks good. Very nice realistic tone of color in there. The tongue is also sculpted out inside the mouth and does actually have some pretty nice looking texturing to it in there. The upper side of the inside of the mouth, unfortunately, is not painted. It's just the same kind of yellowish tone that we have for the Shringasaurus. As we start to move up here into the back, you see some ridges running down along the back of the neck of the Shringasaurus, as well as some incredible looking scale detail. The scale detail and the skin texture of the Shringasaurus is extremely nice on this figure, and you can see some nice skin wrinkles here right behind the head. kind of showing off some movement there in our Shringasaurus. That kind of turn in the head right there, wrinkling the skin, looks really good. And you have some more beautiful skin wrinkles and stuff as you move down the course of the neck. Also a little bit of tensing right there in the neck region. And again, as you move up further into the figure, it really has that very nice looking reptilian style scaling, which I love. You can see the throat here on the underside. The lower jaw is an off-white, and that off-white proceeds to run down into the throat a little bit, but it only goes, just a little hair of the way down, maybe closing in on halfway down the throat region, and then tapers off, and then we have nothing more than the yellow coloration here on the underneath, unfortunately. You can see, though, that the brown, the very dark brown that we have for the face of the Shringasaurus, continues to run along the back, and you can see it takes over almost the entire upper side of the Shringasaurus, but then kind of like leaks down the side, which looks really cool. The further down into the body you get, you continue to have that same style design, with the back being almost completely covered in that dark brown, and then kind of leaking down and spotting down in certain areas. You can continue to see some beautiful scale detail, though, down here in the body. Again, very, very reptilian-like scale detail, which I love. And again, lots more skin wrinkles and stuff here, like really a ton of them down here in the lower part of the stomach. And I feel like the skin detail of this might be one of the nicest I've seen on Mattel when it comes to just how highly detailed the sculpt is. Like, it looks really, really good. As you move down here into the front leg, you can definitely see some very nice muscle definition. The legs are also out away from the body a little bit, very reptilian-like as far as that goes as well. Some nice creasing there in the joint of the elbow, and the elbow itself is present here on the back of the leg. Moving down into the foot sculpt also looks nice. You can see those speckles, those kind of trademark speckles of Mattel, are all over the place on this one, which I absolutely love that aspect. Unfortunately, we don't have any painted nails, which, is pretty common as far as Mattel goes, but I really wish they would just apply some nail paint to their figures and start to give them a little bit of a higher quality look. Like, we always complain about Hasbro and stuff and how poorly they did with the Jurassic line, but if you go back to the Jurassic Park 3 line and the lines that followed, those figures had some really nice paintwork. Like, they had paint all the way out onto the tails, numerous different tones throughout. They had painted nails and stuff. So if only Mattel could take notes even from Hasbro when it comes to that, they would be much better off as far as the overall quality of their figures goes. But I will say I do actually quite like the coloration of this one a lot. You can see that dark brown does continue to run down the course of the back, as well as some more of those ridges, and I like how the ridges are almost kind of sporadic, where they're not like evenly placed the entire way down. Some are smaller, some are bigger, some are not even there. There's just like a few areas where they don't even have ridges, so that's pretty cool. That's something I don't really recall seeing on a Mattel figure before. Definitely something that I personally do enjoy. And you can see that that brown then stops right here, right past the hip region, leading into the tail. So of course we don't actually have any alternate paint out onto the tail. As you move down into the thigh, you can see the muscle definition is very nicely displayed in the thigh as well as the calf. Again, more of those speckles. Those speckles are just everywhere. You can see the kneecap is very nicely displayed on the front of the leg. And then the foot here on the back also looks good, but we really needed that nail paint. I feel like the nail paint would make a massive difference, and the overall appeal factor visually of this figure just really would have helped. And then as you lead out into the tail, again, look at all of the skin wrinkles and skin folds and stuff here on this figure. It just looks so cool, so nice the way that they've sculpted it out, very lizard-like. And you can see again that we have more of that very nice reptilian style scaling. The further out into the tail we get, more of those ridges running along the back. And we also have a very nice curve for the tail, nothing unrealistic by any means. And then if we take a look at the opposing side, of course, being an articulated figure like this, you're really not going to see too much difference. The only real big difference you'll see on this side over the other side is the fact that the legs are in a slightly different position, but it's almost mostly just the rear legs. You can see the opposing leg is trailing a little bit more so than this leg on this side, but the front legs are almost in the exact same spot, maybe slightly different. Everything else appears to be pretty much the same as far as the figure goes. I will say that I like that the kind of horns up here on the head do have a hint of a gloss coat to them, so they shine a little bit, which helps them to stand out. I do like that aspect of the figure as well, but other than that, it honestly looks pretty much the same everywhere else. The underside also sports some pretty nice detailing throughout, and then there is the Jurassic Facts app code if you would like to add this to your collection. But definitely a really cool Wild Pack figure from this line, and definitely one that I was really excited about adding to my collection. As far as articulation goes on our Shringasaurus, again, the jaw is articulated, but it is super, super stiff, so it definitely needs to be loosened up, and maybe some warm water would do the trick, but it's super, super stiff, not near as smooth as the articulated jaws of most Mattel figures. We also have neck articulation. You can see it can go up and down very nicely. It can also go left or right, and it can swivel all the way around if you would really like to give yourself some sort of a nightmare with that image. But again, very nice, very smooth articulation in the neck, a lot smoother than we have in the jaw. We also have articulation in the front leg, which works very nicely. Articulation in the rear leg, which also works nicely. Doesn't come out away from the body, but it works smoothly. And then we have articulation in the tail with a swivel. Very nice articulation for our Shringasaurus. As far as the size goes, for a length, you are looking at about I'd say about 7¼ inches, closing in on about 18½ centimeters. And then for a height, when the head is in a nice comfortable position right there, you are looking at about the 3¼ inch range, or a little over 8 centimeters, maybe closing in on 8½ centimeters. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack, Colovosaurus, and Robert Muldoon from the Mattel Jurassic World toy line in comparison to our Mattel Wild Pack Shringasaurus. And you can see that it is roughly about the same size, round kind of a normal Attack Pack, but it actually seems like maybe it's a little bit bigger. Not a whole lot, but just maybe a tad. Maybe it's just the beefiness of the head and neck region that makes it appear bigger, but it honestly does look like it's a little hair bigger than a normal Attack Pack like you would see there with the Colovosaurus, but still very nicely sized for being a Wild Pack figure, and you can see that for sure in comparison to Mr. Papo T-Rex over here, who is a pretty big figure himself. Even though it's not huge as far as the Shringasaurus goes, it's also no slouch. And for a second comparison, we have some more Mattel figures here to again help to give you an idea roughly of what the size of the Shringasaurus is. Definitely an impressive and very nice sized figure for this species. I'm honestly beyond happy with how this one turned out, and definitely happy with the overall size. You can see it looks like it's almost a little bit bigger than both of the figures that we have here. So very, very nicely sized version of the Shringasaurus by Mattel. So this brand new Wild Pack from the Mattel line for the Shringasaurus is a really nice figure, shockingly, like way better than I expected it to be, which, you know, I didn't expect it to be terrible by any means, but I just didn't expect it to be as nice as it is. Mattel just seems to be getting better and better and better when it comes to just how vibrant the detail on their figures truly is. Like, it is some really, really nice detail that just pops so nicely on their figures, and that's honestly been the case for quite a while now. Like, it just seems like every release it looks a little bit better than it did on the previous release, so kudos to them for upping their game and giving us such nicely detailed figures. But the Shringasaurus itself, again, doesn't look exactly like a Shringasaurus would. It doesn't look perfect, but it's not too far off, and it does still look really quite nice. Again, almost having that terror dog type of a look, but it still looks, again, even better appearance-wise than I expected. I didn't think it would look quite as nice as it does as far as the overall sculpt, not just the fine detail goes, because I think maybe the promotional images that Mattel had given us originally they weren't the best angles for it, and looking at it from alternate angles really shows how nice the figure truly is, which is something that does happen quite often with any company. I think sometimes they just choose these poor angles of their figures that will turn people away, but then when the figure releases, it's actually much nicer than you expect. And that is definitely the case, I think, with this Shringasaurus. Like, Schleich is well known for doing that with their figures, and although they don't always turn out great, sometimes they do release some really nice figures that you would have no idea are that nice because of the weird angles they use for their promotional images. Mattel does do that as well from time to time. But I feel like the sculpt, again, is beautifully done, sporting some very nice, very reptilian-like scaling throughout the course of the figure, and the actual skin detail is incredibly well done on this, probably nicer than any Mattel figure that I can think of prior when it comes to showing off that very, reptilian, lizard-like skin detail. It is really beautifully done on this figure. The paintwork as well is pretty nice, but of course there's always room for improvement when it comes to a paint job on a Mattel figure. It is unfortunate, as per usual, that we don't have paint running out onto the tail. We also don't have nail paint or anything like that. we really only have like 3 different tones of color on the figure when it comes to a little bit of color on the lower jaw, the dark brown, and then the yellowish coloration for the body. Not too much going on color-wise. The paint, though, does look good. What we have been given definitely does look nice. It plays off of each other really quite nicely, and there is that very abundant speckling throughout the course of the figure, which is also really nice to see on the figure, and I think helps the overall coloration look a little bit nicer. We do also have some nice articulation with some stiff articulation in the jaw, but that's something that I feel like could be worked out with some warm water or just using it over time. Aside from that area, though, the articulation is really quite smooth and quite beautifully done throughout the course of the figure. So another really cool figure from Mattel, one that I'm really psyched actually got a release. I did not in any way, shape, or form expect Mattel to release a Shringasaurus, but I will say Mattel has been doing a fantastic job when it comes to choosing different species to release, and they have given us far more species than any company has previously when it comes to the Jurassic toy line. So a huge thumbs up from me when it comes to the sheer amount of species Mattel has been choosing to create, and this Shringasaurus is a great example of that. So if you are interested in this, make sure you check your local Walmart or Target, as I do believe they've been showing up in both of those stores. Walmart a little bit more so than Target. The only thing that's a little bit of a bummer as far as these figures go is it seems as though they aren't in the system quite yet, so if you do encounter these, try to find an older attack pack and then go to the self-checkout and use that attack pack to scan these guys in, and you should be able to get them that way. Or you could take them to customer service. I've done that in the past too, where I just kind of haggle with customer service, explain the situation to them, and then they'll usually scan them through and give them to me, but it sometimes can be a hassle. Hopefully they do put them in the system soon, but again, check your local Walmart. That seems to be the more popular place that they've been showing up lately. And make sure you pick this up if you can, in fact, find it. And make sure you also like, comment, and subscribe before you do. And I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.